Welcome, everybody, to another episode of MC Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searl with Insider Perks, Modern Campground, all the things. And super excited to welcome you back to another show. We're going to talk about the RV industry today, as we always do on our fourth week of the month, as well as a little bit about outdoor recreation and things like that. I've got a couple recurring guests here with us, Eleonore Hamm from RVDA of Canada, Phil from RVDA of America. Is there like an RVDA of Mexico, Australia? Are there global domination plans here, guys? Should we have...
Australia has one.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know about Mexico.
It's really late, though, for them right now, right? So anyway, we'll figure out how to continue expanding. But we're going to have some good conversations. I appreciate you guys being here, as always. And then we have a special guest today. We had one back out because they were, I think, sick or something. It says in my notes. But Eva Mitic, did I pronounce that right? From RV Pro's Inaugural Editorial Advisory Board is going to talk to us a little bit about some of the work that they're doing there and some of the exciting things they have going on. So I guess, and then maybe we'll have a little bit of fun. Should we let Phil in on the plan, or should I just like spring it on him?
Spring it on him. He's cool. Really good at
he's good on his feet. Adapting. Okay, cool. All right, so let's start. Let's just briefly go around the room and introduce themselves. Phil, you want to start, and then Eleonore, and then Eva. And then maybe Greg too. I forgot Greg was here. He's up in the top corner. He like blends in with the wood background.
Shrinking away.
Greg was here. Like your shirt kind of blends in with the background. It's not my fault, man.
Yeah, that's okay. This is my.
You got to color coordinate.
This is my urban camouflage. I did. I coordinated with the wall behind me. This way, if the conversation gets weird, I can just pull it up over my head, and you guys be like, "What the? Where?"
That's fair. It's me. Every conversation gets weird. Okay, weird. Phil, go ahead. Sorry.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Phil Ingrassia, president of the RV Dealers Association of the U.S. We represent U.S. motorhome and travel trailer dealers all across the country.
Thank you for being here, Phil. Eleonore?
I'm Eleonore Hamm. I'm president of the RV Dealers Association of Canada, and likewise, we represent RV dealers across Canada.
Thank you for being here. Greg?
I'm Greg Emmert, newly minted founder at Vireo. That's a new brand that I'm launching now that I'm back on my own doing consulting work. So keep your eyes out for more of that coming soon.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Are you growing the beard longer intentionally? Is that part of the new brand, or
that? No, this is laziness, which is not part of the new brand. But yeah, so
it's good you clarify that, because like I don't want people to have wrong expectations, right? So yes. Like hire Greg. He won't work that hard for you, but he'll work a little hard for you.
He'll work sort of hard. Yeah, no, we're going to go. This is going to get all cleaned up soon.
Okay. Promises. Eva.
Nice to meet everybody. Eva Mitic. I'm part of the RV Pro Advisory Committee, and I specialize in renewable resources and sustainability technology.
Awesome.
And of course, I'm the one that didn't put my title on my name, so sorry about that.
No, that's all right. You can do it. You can click the 3 dots by your name, and you can edit it if you want to.
I'll look at that technology.
So I think what I'd like to start with is what we typically do. Like I actually liked last show where I had time to prep and do some of the things, and we had a conversation, and we'll do more of that in the future. I just had a crazy busy week. I didn't have time to prepare a lot of that stuff. So I think what I'd like to just start with is ask, our regular guests, Phil, Greg, Eleonore, is there anything that came across your desk that you'd like to talk about, you think is important to address? And then we can maybe dive into Eva's story, and then we'll maybe have a little bit of fun on the back end of it if we have time. Nobody's going to talk? You're all going to be quiet?
We're all too polite. Eleonore, ladies first, please.
Yes.
Okay, well, it's April in Canada, and our dealers are busy. I think they'd still like to be a little bit busier. Everything's gearing up towards our election here next Monday. So a lot of the work that we've been doing in the association has been government advocacy with the counter tariffs. And we haven't really made a lot of progress in the last 2 weeks. Everything's pretty much on hold with the government officials as we wait for the election results on Monday. Following that, we'll be ramping up our efforts again to try to remove motorhomes from the counter tariff measures. I mean, that's been really the big thing. Obviously, talked about it last time, the tariff, the threat of tariffs, the uncertainty. There was an announcement on April 9th whereby the second phase of tariffs did not go into place, but there's still the automotive tariffs. And unfortunately, motorhomes are considered under an HS code which is an automotive code. So all motorhomes right now are getting the 25% tariff imposed on them. So as kind of working towards the big issue right now for the association. But like I said earlier, it's a beautiful day here. It was still snowing, I think, in the prairies yesterday, but hopefully spring is here, and dealers are seeing activity across, in their dealerships. Hopefully that continues.
Yeah, it was snowing in Calgary, I think, 2 days ago. But then it's always sunny though, right? So it feels different in Calgary when it snows. But it's all melted down and didn't stick. So. Good to hear the RV dealers are busy. We got it. I think we just have to get creative with the whole tariff thing and fix it completely once and for all. Could we make as the RVs are delivered, could we make them like embassies of the United States, and then as they travel, they haven't technically crossed the border, and then they're not tariffed?
I don't know what the solution is. Well, the solution is to remove. I don't want to, go into that.
No, we're not going to talk about that today. We're not going to talk about that today. So good to spring's around the corner. Good to hear the RV dealers are busy. Phil, you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Eleanor was talking about, the season's heating up. There are concerns here in the U.S. regarding consumer sentiment. It's a discretionary purchase, buying a camper, whether it's a motorhome or a travel trailer. And when people are, a little concerned about the economy, they're less likely to open their wallet for a discretionary purchase, like a boat, RV, or power sports product. So, there's some concern here. We'd like to see some more certainty with the markets and things like that. And, it's day to day. They say one thing, and then all of a sudden, we're back to, to the negotiating table, and the markets do what they do. So, but I think dealers are focused on, the fundamental, it's going to be summer here pretty quick, and people are going to need campers, and that's where we're focused.
How do we make RVs not a discretionary purchase? Have you tried to lobby for that? It's just
for some people, I guess they aren't a discretionary purchase, but for the vast majority of customers, they are.
Which is the problem, right? When you turn 20, it's like the military draft. You should just be forced to buy an RV.
Absolutely.
Get it out of your system. I think that would work well. Okay. Greg, you have anything?
Yeah, well, I hate to go back onto the tariff thing, but
no, come on, man. We're having an
I know
conversation, man.
But I'm waiting to see, because just listening to some radio today and reading the news and reminding me that on the 25th, so 2 more days, the tariffs will kick in on things like on suppliers and websites like Temu or Temu. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And there's another one.
You're talking about the de minimis exemption or whatever?
Yeah, and the tariffs are going to kick in on those purchases. And, a lot of my clients, they source things for their store or for their recreation because was incredibly cheap, because you're skirting around that kind of stuff. The tariff is set to kick in on that on the 25th. So there's a lot of uncertainty there with people that are, right now is the time, right? Everybody's either opening, at least here in the North, I'm in Northeast Ohio, everyone's either just opened or opening, and they want to stock their stores and they want to buy things for their activities and Lord knows what else, right? You can get a lot of stuff through those sites incredibly cheap, typically. It's going to be different this year potentially, but to Phil's point, the uncertainty of it all, the 25th at 12 a.m., we could find out that it's all lifted for another week or forever, or, until they decide to put it back on. So just kind of looking forward, but not looking forward to seeing what happens there.
All the things are going to be fine, Greg. We've already determined.
I know all the things are going to be fine.
5 of us on this show have already decided it's going to be great.
I think your work around making the RVs embassies has merit. I think
It
that's
just
got
takes
legs. We need
creative
to look
thinking.
into
That's
that.
all I'm saying.
It
Like, and
does.
also, like Eleanor, like, do you feel like we have a multi-party system in Canada? Have you thought about creating your own RVDA party that
No.
only like is solely focused on the RV industry?
No, that was
I think
that
you
was a
could run for
solid
that,
no.
Eleanor.
No, I
Yeah,
spent
that was
enough
very
time in
fast.
Ottawa, and I spent enough time in, knowing what the ins and outs of what happens at government, and there's no way you can pay me enough to participate or go down
Maybe you
that
could just
road.
run for prime minister. Be like, my only sole platform is
Hats
buy
off.
an RV.
Hats off to everyone who runs and who dedicates their time to government, and we obviously need it, but it is I don't think it's for me. Thank you, Brian, for your support.
Well, I tried. What can I say? I would vote for you though if you ever change your mind.
Okay. No.
Eva, tell us. Let's dive into your story a little bit. So tell us about what, for the people who are watching this who may not be familiar, and I don't think there's many, but who haven't been familiar with RV Pro overall. Like, give us a background on what it is.
Yeah, sure. RV Pro is the top tier industry publication for the RV sector, primarily focusing on RV dealers, RV manufacturers, and anybody that's related to the business in terms of technology plays, what the market trends are looking like, and those types of things.
So tell me about your work there. Like, what do you do for RV Pro?
So I'm a part of the editorial advisory board, and like I mentioned before, my one of my many hats has always been, I actually went to school for journalism, so I have a background in editorial writing and those types of things. And with my work, I kind of found a passion for technology and sustainability. So I am a part of the board that advises about industry trends for technology and sustainable initiatives.
Oh, we might be talking about some technology stuff later, but we don't
Let's
want
go.
we don't want to let Phil know too early. Okay. So talk to me about some of the things you recently covered. Like, what do you think is important for your publication, but for you to highlight recently? Like, good things. We can't talk about tariffs.
Totally. Just to clarify that I'm not actually a part of the publication. I'm a part of the advisory committee, so
Well,
I
that
can't
just means
speak
you
on
have more
behalf of
power.
RV Pro. Pardon me?
That just means you have more power. Like, we
Yeah,
know,
I guess
we
so.
know you have power, okay.
Just means I can get in more trouble for what I say next. No, I'm kidding. So in terms of trends, I mean, a lot of the stuff with sustainable technology has been gearing more towards like making everything more accessible to the average user. A lot of the technology that we've seen in the past, like lead acid batteries and those types of things going the way of the dodo, mostly because people can't lift them anymore, has been a big component for the RV industry, moving towards a lithium technology and more sustainable, less wasteful technology applications for those.
So lithium is better. We shouldn't try to we don't need to retrain people how to lift more, right? Like you're saying.
No, exactly. I mean, lifting is always good, especially as you age. It increases your bone density, but that's another editorial committee that I'm on.
It probably is. I still remember like when you say that or anybody talks about like lifting something heavy. I don't know if you guys saw it a couple of years ago. There was this great commercial with this old guy who was like training. You saw him lifting kettlebells and like you didn't know what he was doing for like a minute. And then at the end, it's on YouTube somewhere. In the end, he's like been training to like lift his granddaughter to put the star on top of the Christmas tree at Christmas. And it's just super cool.
I do remember that one.
Nice. Yeah. So that's what I always think about when somebody talks about training and lifting stuff and all that kind of jazz. So, so tell me, like, I know we talked about your role a little bit, but like editorial advisory, why is it important to have one of these?
Everyone has their own opinions in the market, and really it depends on, market insights depend on the industry leaders in that market to be able to actively identify trends and be able to really expand on buying behaviors and those types of things for everybody to understand. And I think it's super important to kind of get a panel together, especially on things like RVs who have so many different systems on them. They've got so many different technologies, and they vary so greatly from like the bumper pull tent campers all the way up to the $1 million motor coaches. There's a huge breadth of things in a lot of areas of expertise that can be called upon to kind of shape this image of what the market looks like and what the trends look like going forward.
What's one of the recent things that you've like set us a picture of like the day-to-day recently of you? Like what's some of the things you've been tossing around as you consider what to advise on? Because I'm imagining like, well, I'm not even imagining things, right? Because I'm thinking, you always think about when you hear editorial board of like the Washington Post or the New York Times editorial board or things like that, right? And I don't know deeply how those things work, other than they like once a year get in trouble for endorsing people that they maybe shouldn't or should. Will you do that, by the way? Like if Eleanor changes her mind, will you endorse Eleanor for Prime Minister?
I'll endorse anybody, but it really depends
Anybody?
on
Like
what
you
their
won't even
platform looks
consider
like.
All right. But something that's come across your desk recently that you kind of talked back and forth and said, like, we do want to cover this, we don't want to cover this. And this is, like, I'm putting words in your mouth. I'm assuming this is how your day-to-day goes a little bit. Like, what do we say about it? What do we not say about it? How do we frame it? Where do we get the data? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that conversation happens constantly, even in my day-to-day outside of the editorial advisory committee, trying to position things correctly and trying to figure out exactly what the right words to communicate things are. One of the biggest things that we've seen as a trend and something that I've been really kind of focusing on lately has been ease of use for everything that you touch. People's attention spans don't exist anymore. It's something, there's no more time for people to give to anything else. So making things easier to use and the ease of use and the connectivity of items, whether it be, cooking systems or any other systems in the RV, and having everything well connected in an intuitive, easy to use way for the user. That is the topic that's been top of mind for at least the last 12 months. Especially with the COVID boom in the RV industry, people were starting to kind of get maybe the cart a little too far in front of the horse when it came to buying RVs. They purchased something without really understanding a lot of it. And then their industry is starting to play catch up, playing catch up to educate these consumers that maybe took the plunge a bit too early. And that has impacted a lot of the trends to moving towards these easy to use, smart, interconnected systems, kind of like smart homes, but on wheels that you can pull with your truck. So that's been top of mind for a little while for us.
What do you think are like a couple of the most interesting ways that you've seen these things shift or that we might see coming into RVs in the future as a result of what you just talked about?
The most interesting way that I've seen them shift. I mean, from the sustainability technology kind of side of things, it's kind of like consumer electronics. If you think about how the technology has been improving so rapidly over the last couple of years, and that continues to increase. One of the things that has kind of been identified as a market gap has been the use of artificial intelligence and building that within the infrastructure of optimizing the systems on board the RVs. Now, it's not something that I know of anybody doing right now, but it's definitely an option. You can see people, RV dealers, RV OEMs scaling faster and broader using AI tools as a backbone and building that into like RV building and RV customer support and stuff like that has definitely been an interesting step towards a new trend that nobody really saw coming.
Okay, interesting. I'm curious. Let's take this. I have a quick question because this came across. As you look at how to advise, what to talk about, and even deeper, Eleanor and Phil, to like how. I guess maybe manufacturers is more the question than dealers, but maybe I'm sure you can speak on this maybe anyway. But how do you decide what to focus on from a consumer standpoint or from a, like you're talking about, an optimization standpoint to make things more efficient? And the reason I asked that is like I had a meeting yesterday, I won't say with who, but we were talking about like product innovation. And one of the things that I brought up to them was like, there's two basically roles you can take. One is let's wait until the consumer asks for it, which is what most companies do. It's the let's wait until the awareness reaches enough scale to where you can say like, oh, like I want, a sliding door that's automatic if I approach it, or I'm just making things up, right? Or you can take the Steve Jobs approach and say like, I don't care what you think you want. This is what you want, and here's an iPhone, and then they all buy it, right? So how do you guys think that the RV industry deals with those kinds of things? Whoever wants to take that.
Well, I would say probably in general, we've been more the latter or the former in terms of, it's consumer driven, right? The manufacturing process has followed consumer demand. I think that's generally how it happens. Having said that, I think there are some that, have been showing technologies and there are some features in some of the units that consumers may not even know were necessarily aware initially. And that was industry driven, but I think generally, yeah, we're following what the consumer dictates.
Which do you think is a better approach? Like, I think they both have equally their merit, right? To be clear, like, I'm not trying to trap you into anything, right? Just like, I'm just curious what, like, as you look at, and I don't know deeply about the RV industry like I do some of the other industries that I'm familiar with, like marketing, advertising, AI, tech, that kind of stuff. But as I look at how fast some of these things are speeding up and how consumer attention is shifting and changing, and they're seeing new things over here and different new things over here and old things over here that still have a lot of value and are great. Is there a little bit of merit in saying, like, obviously we still need to listen to the consumer and what they want and all the things, right? But also maybe we look at things that we're pretty sure they're going to want soon, and then that sets us apart from our manufacturer, our rig, or our dealership, right?
Right. I think that it's kind of a pendulum, if you will. I mean, I think some of the features that are in RVs, for instance, slide out rooms, were definitely driven by a demand for a larger unit set up at the campground, but it took the manufacturers and the suppliers working together to put the systems in place that made that happen, right? On the other hand, you've got affordability issues now, especially with higher interest rates and things. So maybe some of those things that people thought they wanted or the manufacturers thought they needed to put in the units are no longer necessarily, core to the purpose of the unit. So they, quote unquote, decontent some of this stuff out that isn't, absolutely necessary to enjoy camping to keep the price down. So it depends somewhat on the price point of the unit, and it also depends on the ultimate how long are you using it? How long are you going to be in there? So, the more long-term units, the more expensive units, the larger motorhomes and fifth wheels are going to have a lot more technology baked into the product than perhaps, the family camper that's used, just on the weekends.
Are there any ways to forecast this out a little bit? And what I mean by that is, like, nobody really knows where, especially now with how fast the world is changing, but nobody really knows where we'll be in 3 to 5 years as far as technology goes, because it's moving so fast. But are there ways, generally speaking, to kind of try to look out and say, like, of all the things that are coming that are uncertain, here's a few things that, like, for example, convenience. Everybody always wants convenience. If you can make something more convenient or easy to use, like Eva was talking about, then there's a lot more adoption. Are there ways to look out in the RV industry and forecast some or a little bit of that stuff to say, like, I'm pretty confident that even though maybe a lot of consumers aren't demanding this yet, that regardless of what happens in tech, this is something that is good and that I can scale and that will help me sell more RVs of this type?
I think there are some parallels between technologies used in homes and technologies that are adopted in the RV industry that have some of the same pathways to get to kind of, you have this convenience at home, and yes, you want to, step out and take this time off and, take your RV out into the middle of nowhere, but you still want to have creature comfort. So I think there is a parallel, but it's a little bit more delayed of, you got the smart home technology at home, for example, you want to be able to tell Alexa to pull in your slides at the end of your trip. So there might be some,
I absolutely want to do that. Sorry, go ahead.
Right?
Yeah,
no
sure.
worries. Or like empty my Blackwater tank. Nobody wants to kneel in that stuff, right? So it's like there's some things that can be looked at in the life that we're living now that can be maybe adopted in the future. But in terms of like the 3, 5, 10-year kind of roadmap, it's definitely you still have to be able to listen to the people who are purchasing them, and the decontenting kind of idea as well is a very interesting one that's come up over the last little bit of. Yeah, again, the affordability aspect of it. So quick answer is maybe. I think there's not really a direct delineation of like, okay, this is our roadmap and this is how we're going to get there. But it honestly kind of looks like more of educated guesses and hunches based off of the available technology that's out there.
Right. And some of the R&D right now that you hear about it was based on an electronic vehicle future, EV future, that seems a little cloudier now than it did 2 years ago, right?
Yeah, all the Teslas
you
are on
had
fire. I don't know
the
if you noticed.
development of of these prototype, for instance, on the towable side, the prototypes of these kind of self-propelled trailers that we're going to help push the EVs down the road to increase range. I mean, those are still in development. There's companies that are out there doing that, but is it going to be as quick as everybody thought? It seems like EV adoption, especially on the towable side for tow vehicles, has slowed down somewhat. The announcements coming out of the auto manufacturers are that, well, maybe we're not going to build as many, Ford Lightnings as we thought we were going to.
Yeah.
So, it's difficult to be on the bleeding edge of some of these technologies because it takes a lot of money, a lot of R&D to do it, and then that's a big financial risk, especially for an industry that is. We're not as big as some, so the R&D availability of funds may not be there like it is in some of the larger technology industries.
Well, and that's a good point, right? Like if you look at like a company like me that deals with like software and services, it's a whole lot easier for me to do R&D and experiment with some stuff than it is to go design a rig and map it out and like actually build it and see if it works and do it right. That's a whole lot. So you're right. It's a whole different expense. So that brings the question, like, let's use your example of electronic vehicles. Is there a threshold generally that you see in the RV industry where there gets to a point where they say, okay, we have enough data or we have enough of a sense that maybe electric vehicles are going to be a thing, that now we want to pivot 5% or 10%, or we want to do R&D at a basic level to where they say like, okay, now it's okay to put some money into this? Nobody wants to take that? Was it a bad question or?
Well, I mean, it's not a bad question. It's just,
like generally
it really
speaking,
depends. I mean, it really depends. If it's a simple thing to tool up for, that's one thing. If it's going to take, millions of dollars to put this potential thing in,
right. So that's what I'm asking, right? What is that threshold? So like, obviously you're not going to do that on day one or even year one, maybe. But is there a threshold for like EV adoption? Because there was a certain point with EVs that you just said where we got to at least some of the manufacturers were looking at those options to do the pull behinds or the push behinds. So there had to be some kind of turning point or metric that they looked at that said, okay, this is far enough down the line that we can risk hundreds of thousands or a couple million to research this. Boy, you're just not liking my questions today, I guess.
No, I just don't have the answer. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, neither do I. Like it's all speculation, right? I don't think I'm looking for an answer. I'm just looking for your, I guess, general opinion as experts in the industry is all.
Well, I think that's the kind of difference between like the Steve Jobs mentality versus like the kind of reactionary to the market methodology that's been, tried, tested, and true. Is nobody, maybe not nobody, but there are very few companies that are willing to take the plunge that have the backing of the investors to be able to look at those futuristic technologies and be able to build the prototypes. Whether or not those protos are going to actually sell, who knows? But realistically, the capital available for those types of initiatives is kind of getting smaller and smaller without angel investors at a high level. So while the wish and dream of everybody being able to come up with the next iPhone is definitely there, or a battery the size of my pocket or the battery the size of my watch that'll power the whole RV. How are you going to be able to do that when you're trying to sell a product and you're trying to keep the lights on? So sure, I think that there's a happy balance between the Never Never Land kind of pie in the sky idea projects that everyone would love to do and be the next best thing, but still being able to have a viable business at the end of the day.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm not advocating or saying anybody's doing it wrong. I was just curious, right? I don't have that data or I don't have that expertise.
No, because I would definitely be the person that would be working on those projects if I could, 100%.
Yeah, and I think that you're seeing some incremental movement in, especially like on onboard power systems, right? I mean, 10 years ago, everybody had to have a generator. Now, not everybody does need a generator on board. So that's a good example of how incrementally, as the technology gets more affordable, and better performing, that you move into a different space for onboard power generation on RVs that just didn't exist. So I think that's one of the most innovative sectors of the RV industry right now is just the different power systems that are available and all the changes that have come in that space. And we'll see, where it goes in the next few years as battery technology improves.
And why is that so important to the consumer? I mean, I kind of know, but like, I just want you to articulate it with the power systems. Like, why is that the focus?
Every part of the RV is electrified almost at this point. So, you're running your water pump, your furnace, the avenue to electrification started a couple of years ago when small generators were not outlawed. In California decided that they were going to bring, it was outlawed, that California was going to say that small generators were not really a viable option for any, power generation anymore. So that kind of shifted things away from using ICE engines to generate power to having fully self-sustaining electrical power systems in RVs. And Phil's absolutely right. The backbone of most RV systems these days, especially off-grid travelers, will be the mobile power system. So like I was mentioning before, the shift from lead acid to lithium, for example, you've got one lithium battery that can completely displace 6 80-pound 6-volt batteries, which is a crazy investment when the one lithium battery is 75 pounds itself. So you're making things more lightweight, you're making them more accessible, you're maybe offsetting the cost of replacements every couple of years for better technologies. And you're also not having people fighting over campsites that have plugins, which is a huge thing. Like, I think 3 or 4 of my best friends this year have already told me that there's no more campsites left on the island that I live on. Like, that's a big thing.
What island do you live on?
I'm on Vancouver Island, so I'm in Victoria. But they're like, yeah, there's nowhere to go. Like, if we have an RV, there's nowhere to go that we're able to plug in. So those power systems, I completely agree with Phil, are the place where a lot of the incremental adoption has definitely seen a lot of growth and continues to see a lot of growth, prospective growth rather.
Well, and that's like, I really wanted to get to the heart of what the consumer benefits are, right? And you touched on that. So I think the lightweight, which means less fuel and longer range, right? And then just more ability to go more places. Is
quieter.
Here's the other thing. Air conditioning. You can actually run an air conditioner on mobile power systems now. Like, that was something that was completely unheard of 5 years ago. So it's something like, if you have a 300 amp hour lithium battery with like 400 watts of solar on the roof, you can run it for like 35 minutes before you go to bed. So like, if you're camping in the middle of the summer and you want to cool the bedroom down, you can do that without having to plug in or run a generator. Like, that's something that was, again, completely unheard of before. Again, the transition to 12-volt fridges, electrifying everything. Like, you kind of have to have that backbone to be able to support all of that too. But yeah, in terms of benefits for people, it's the quiet part, Phil, absolutely on point there too. Nobody wants to be that guy, turning on their generator at breakfast because they depleted their lights overnight, and their CPAP machine completely made everything go dead. So the quiet, the lightweight, the off-grid freedom really is the underscoring component for all of that. And I think that's the lifestyle that the RV industry is selling. And those 3 components underpinning that kind of target is really coming true.
Greg, how do you feel about this generally? Like, not specifically about the RV industry, right? But the same mindset of like, how do you decide when to pay attention to something when you're consulting?
So usually for me, it is the market tells me that somebody wants it, right? I might try to lean into something with my services and say, this is, here's what I've got. You need this thing. But really, as a consultant, it's very reactionary thing, right? I have a very specific set of skills. And when somebody needs something, then that gets applied, right? But it's very difficult to go out as a consultant and be like, I have the thing and you need it, and Steve Jobs. And I don't look good in black shirts or turtlenecks either. Mock turtlenecks. I think you need that if you're going to sell that thing. You have to have that, and then a big stage. And I'm no good in front of people. But I love all the. first of all, I think we could all just like hang back and let Eva take the show. She's absolutely killing it, and my brain can't operate on that level. But I'm just looking at, so I was just, as you guys are talking, I'm looking at the Go Power page, and yeah, to your point, the freedom, so a 1200 watt system with a 900 amp hour battery, or 900 amp hours worth of battery, that's 7 days off grid. That's absurd. Like I don't think could you have done that 10 years ago? I doubt it, right? Because the bank of lead acid deep cycles that you would need would be insane. So that I think is what's driving companies like, and I think we talked about this, I can't remember if it was Outwired or this show, like Pebble, who I'm so excited about. I love watching their innovation that they're plugging in. They are like, at least from what I can tell, they are like the Steve Jobs of innovation for the RV industry right now. But to the point of how much they've invested, when you were talking about R&D, so far to date, they've raised $13.6 million. So there's the threshold right there that Phil was talking about, right? Extremely difficult to try to get in space and be, but I mean, man, if you haven't seen a Pebble flow, it's pretty incredible. Like, I can't wait to see it on the road.
And the price point on that trailer is $135,000. So there we get into that affordability argument, and who can access that. Now, you hope that some of that technology, like a lot of things, that will come down over time and be more accessible to people who just need a unit to go camping on the weekends. So, like a lot of things, a percentage of your discretionary income is limited. So you've got to make those trade-offs when you're talking about whether you're at the top end or the mid-level or entry level of the industry. So we can't forget that affordability. And then, you are reaching a whole new segment of consumers who don't want to hook up. They don't want to go have that kind of, campground experience. They want a different type of experience. And so that's where the technology allows you a lot more of mobility. And I'm not saying that they don't want it ever. They just may want different types of experiences, different parts of the trip.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's the beauty of something like the Pebble, a 45 kilowatt hour battery. And I forget how many watts of solar on top. I mean, the thing can even be used to power your home briefly in a power outage. It's got so much saved up power. So there's, to your point, Phil, boy, I can take that thing anywhere and have enough power to run everything inside it for as long as I need to before I head back home. And I was honestly surprised at $140,000 price point, because that's half of a new Class B. If you're looking at something like an Airstream or a Winnie Revel or something, those things are up over $200,000, as are a lot of Class A's. So I thought that was actually pretty inexpensive given the amount of technology that's baked into it. And I can't wait to see. I sound like a Pebble commercial. I'm not, although I am still putting out there. If you people are watching, I would happily brand one for you and drive it around and show it off. I mean, just call me. I've got room in the driveway. So I'm throwing that out.
We'll put an affiliate link in the comments below.
If you need a brand ambassador, you know where to find me. Yeah.
It is interesting though. So let's pivot for a second. Let's do a couple fun things. So let's assume for a second, and obviously this is a big assumption, but this is part of what you don't know we're going to talk about, Phil. So let's just assume the future is what crazy Brian Searl thinks the future is going to be, really, really quick. And I mean by that, like, we've obviously talked about AI, like we all know how big that is, but I'm more talking about, like, what if we solve nuclear fusion in the next 10 years, which I think is going to be possible, and then energy becomes super cheap? What if we have humanoid robots in the next 3 years that are able to be purchased for less than $30,000 that can both build RVs and work in your home and do all the things, right? What if we have, and they're producing those robots this year, right? They're starting to. Dozens of companies are. So, like, I don't think that's a stretch. what if we, we talked about on this on Outwired, what if we have flying cars and then eventually like longer range, I don't know, flying RVs or something in the next 10, 15 years? How does things like that, like if it was my future that I'm imagining, not one that I dictate, but just one that I think has a possibility of coming true in the next 10 to 20 years as technology moves faster, does that, like, I feel like that unlocks a lot of new innovation potential in the RV industry, because all of a sudden, perhaps, maybe you could prototype an RV by having a 3D printed, part or piece, or even a whole chassis, and then you could also have the 3D printing operated by the humanoid robot. And if energy is a whole lot cheaper, right? So I know this is a lot of speculation, and I'm not saying discuss the likelihood of it. I'm asking, if those things happen, what kind of things can we just put our imagination hats on for a second and say, what does that unlock for the industry as far as potential to innovate? Because in that world, it's not anywhere close to as expensive to experiment, right?
No, that's true. And that kind of sounds like a fever dream that I had a couple of years ago. But it's definitely, something that I think that one of the things that with the flying RVs and stuff like that would kind of negate would be like border security. Like how would you be able to police borders or even like
just shoot him down out of the sky, give him 2 warnings.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, it's definitely an interesting concept, and I've got the Jetsons floating around in my head right now with like the android, serving you tea in the morning by the fireside, and you got your robot dog, which came out like in the early 2000s. So like, where did that go?
It's still here. You can buy it for $35,000. Cool. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's not I don't really have any other imagination at this point. I think I'm still too grounded in reality, but it's definitely an interesting concept of being able to, like, we're on the cusp of so many different technological advancements that, again, just need the finances to be able to really push through and on both sides. So it's definitely an interesting time.
Right. And right now that's not feasible, as we've already discussed. Like, we completely agree that you can't do that multi-million-dollar innovation. You can't prototype everything. But like, I think there's going to be, if this comes to pass, a big if, right? I'll stipulate that. I think that is going to unlock some of these RV companies who have innovators working for them, who haven't had a budget to do some of the unique ideas or prototype some of the unique things. And I think we're going to see more of a rapid innovation in some of the things, like just even power systems and things like that, right? That now you can say, well, let me try this. Maybe it'll increase the power load this way. Or maybe what if I rewire it this way? Or what if I do this? And so then instead of speculating, you can actually prototype this stuff and see if it works. And I think that's an interesting future. Are you willing to put your crazy hats on with me, Phil and Eleonore? Or
I guess from my standpoint, I do, it's like any innovation. I mean, things get faster and faster, and I do think there's going to be some changes, and, maybe in 20 years, we will see some of those things that you're talking about. From our standpoint, or what I worry about is whether regulations and standards will be able to keep up with some of the innovation, or
I don't think so. Yeah.
Right. How long will it take Transport Canada to approve, a flying RV? And, does that comply with Canadian motor vehicle safety standards? And like all of that, there's so much infrastructure and regulations in play that take a long time to change or to adapt. And, will the industry, be held back by some of those standards?
Well, let's assume they're not, right? Like, let's assume they're not. We're pie in the sky crazy right now, right? So let's just assume, because they're like, this is not like, we looked at these flying cars, and there's 10 to 12 companies in the U.S. who have these things built and prototyped and are test flying them, and there's at least 5 of them, I think, Greg, right, that are in some stage of FAA approval, that have had FAA inspectors out there looking at them, testing them, looking at the gauges, making them make changes. So this is not, obviously flying RVs is much farther off, right? But flying cars specifically is not that far away. So there obviously will be at some point at least some kind of regulatory framework to it. I mean, in the US, you would assume Canada would follow suit. What is the FAA equivalent in Canada, Eleonore? I don't even know.
Well, it'd be Transport Canada, I guess.
Okay, just over. Okay, it isn't a, okay. Sorry for my ignorance. I've only been up here 4 years. Don't blame me. But that's just it just interests me on how the behavior is going to change, right? Like Greg and I were talking on Outwired too about, like, if you look at just flying cars, and this, forget about flying RVs for a second, but just flying cars, to the 54% of people in New York City who don't own a vehicle, to be able to hop into like a taxi at the top of a building and be able to take off, and maybe it can only go short range, an hour or two, right off the bat. But the ability of you to escape then to the outdoors, out of New York City without owning your own car, within an hour or two, to go to the Catskill Mountains or something like that, right? You don't have to navigate the roads or traffic or anything like that. That for sure changes the behavior of how people experience the outdoors overall, right? So how does that impact, and maybe not at all, but how does that impact things like the RV industry? Does it increase awareness of, I got out of the, for the first time, I've been able to escape to the outdoors because I didn't own a car. Took this flying taxi. I went out, had a great time camping. Is that an upsell into the RV industry? Like, these are the kind of things that, like, I don't know, I'm mentally ill and I think about these things, but like, that interests me, right? Like, I mean, I think the world's just going to change much more quickly than 20 years, Eleanor. But I think the one thing that will prevent it from changing is, you're right, government regulation and willingness of humans to adopt it.
Yeah, I mean, if I could hop on now there's just going to be like the traffic jam's going to be up in the sky in New York.
For sure. Yeah.
But if I can, have access to the outdoors in more readily available to me, I mean, that's great for all of the outdoor recreation, right? Because people will, regardless of whether they're RVing, they're able to, go camping or go boating or what have you. I mean, I think that's great for all of us. So on that side, yes, I think it's a beautiful dream, and we may get there. The RVs themselves, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I think in my mind, right, the RV industry is fine long term. I just don't think they're defined as the traditional, like, big, huge Class C's or B's or whatever, right? Or any of them that you're used to seeing right now. I think they look completely different in 20 years. Oh, yeah. But they're still dealers, and they're still manufacturers, and they still make parts, and they still make money, and it's still maybe or maybe not called the RV industry, but it's still there. The companies are still there, the ones who are willing to innovate. Like, I think it just radically changes. I don't think it ever goes away.
And it very much...
I would agree with that too, actually. The interesting kind of concept too is, like, not necessarily reframing the term recreational vehicle, but like defining it in a more broader sense. Like, it could be something like a collapsible yurt that goes in your back pocket with a bunch of creature comforts in it. Like, again, thinking about the Jetsons, like, there's tons of opportunities there. Again, if if people are crazy enough to really go for them and they have the money to be able to do it. But I think that if people have the ability to be able to go outdoors, they're always going to miss the creature comforts of home. Yeah. So there will always have to be some sort of avenue or vehicle, whatever that might look like, to be able to give them a place to rest their head at night that doesn't involve an air mattress, or a place for their kids to play that doesn't, that's not out in the rain or like rolling in the muck kind of thing. So I think there's always going to be a place for some sort of consumer level vehicle, whatever that looks like, to be able to bring that humble abode outside.
You do make a great point though about, like, they are recreational vehicles, and we think about them like the Class A, Class B's, Class C's that you buy from dealerships that people go camping in. But, like, really, if you wanted to, as an industry, like, you could drastically expand the definition of what a recreational vehicle is. That would change what you could potentially stock on dealer lots. And obviously that's all going to have to be driven, like Phil said, by consumer demand, by all those things, right? But really, there's an almost endless opportunity to what a recreational vehicle could be, especially if you talk about it can fly, or it can go on water, or it can do whatever, right? That'll be interesting to see how that plays out, like if that comes true. And let's say, like, obviously it's going to take a long time to scale, but let's say you can potentially, if you're in a major metropolitan area, be able to hail a flying taxi or schedule one within like 5 years, right? In a major city. because they're already testing these, right, in New York City. So then how does that impact like all the behaviors and all the things that you can do? It's really going to be interesting to think about that. Like I think it drives more if the RV industry is willing to innovate, and I think there's a lot of people, there's some people who won't, but I think most people will be if the data is there and the funding is there, or the costs come down to allow the funding. I think there's a lot of really smart, amazing, innovative people in the industry. And I think that if they're willing to not even be ahead, but to march even alongside the consumer, the ability of them to scale faster and do those things is there. And then, like, I think those 54% of people in New York City, for example, like maybe they don't buy a traditional RV, but maybe they're willing to buy whatever is out there at the time. Like that would be really interesting to put that into ChatGPT, Greg, and be like, what would the RV of the future look like if?
I think even just as it stands, I mean, so imagine you're flying taxi or whatever you want to call it, flying car. You got 54% of the people in New York, right? As you pointed out, they don't have a car. But if they can grab an eVTOL off a rooftop, and it takes them outside the city, maybe it lands them at a lot that is, full of rentable Class B and C RVs. They pick one up there and they head out for the weekend. That could be Outdoorsy's new model in the future, right? Maybe it's not individually owned RVs. Maybe they buy a fleet of them, put them on a lot. You set up your reservation ahead of time, go to the top of your building, fly out, grab your Class B, and you're off to the Catskills.
Or the landing pad is on top of the RV and you dock with it, and then it recharges through the super efficient power supply that Phil said we're going to have in 10 years. And then it just recharges while you like autonomously drive to your campground destination.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I like it.
I love it. I'm ready for it 100%. I just want to fly around in a giant drone with just two people. I just think that would be the coolest freaking thing in the world. I want to get it done before the overhead traffic jams that Eleanor was talking about happen, because that's coming too. That's just going to be a part of it. I want to be one of the first ones up there so I can enjoy some peace and quiet before the rest of the people.
I want to have the flying RV that I can sleep in, though. I think that would be fascinating, right? It's the same thing we talk about with autonomous cars and vehicles, right? Like the opportunity for you, and I've said this for years to campgrounds, right? Who are the stops along the way, like to somewhere else. At some point, like if you have an autonomous vehicle with enough battery life, you're just going to be able to go to sleep and wake up in your destination, just like an overnight train. So then maybe your car at some point for the next 10, 15 years needs to stop and recharge itself. But after that, the battery technology is going to keep continuing to improve. Who knows what we'll discover next after lithium. So then what happens to those stops along the way? Well, you've got to make yourself relevant in some other way. Give your people a reason to stop there, right? But you're still not going to fix the sleeping. But the same thing in the air. Like imagine how far you could go if you just slept for 8 hours in the air while your air taxi took you there. And then you could, like imagine the sunrise you could wake up to, or the sunset you could see over wherever.
Head down to the Grand Canyon for a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And just fly right back. Absolutely.
All right, Phil and Eleanor, can I count on you guys to spearhead this? We'll check back in with you next month and see how it's going.
Sure. Sounds great. And by then you can put that in ChatGPT and see what kind of drawings and templates you come up with.
It would be really cool, like especially the new thinking model, just to see what kind of crazy idea it would come up with. It would be really interesting. So, all right. Any final thoughts we want to talk about? Is there anything, Eva, since you're our special guest, that you wanted to talk about that maybe I didn't ask the right question or talk about the right thing? Or
no, I think we covered a lot today, and I've been I am very thankful for being invited on the show. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to be a part of this, and thank you, Greg, for the compliment. I don't think that my undiagnosed ADHD would have such a good impact on a show like this.
Oh, I have ADHD too.
It's apparently we need more of it, Eva. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm interested. Like, I really like the format that we did. Was it last month that I came up with that whole like question answer like outlay of the show format or whatever we did, or was that 2 months ago? I can't remember. But I liked how that worked, and I'll try to make sure that we do that more often, because I think that helped the show flow more than just talking about crazy flying cars, which is interesting, to be clear. But always like, I think one of the struggles that I personally have being outside of the RV industry when we get on the show is like, I'm not sure what to ask you guys that's different than what I asked before. And so if I can use some of those conversation starters from AI to help us kind of pick a cool topic that's recently happened in the RV industry. Remember we talked about the youth council or whatever that came together, and just some of that stuff that, like, maybe I don't know the right question to ask, that is a great thing that we need to highlight in the RV industry. I think is going to help us have really good shows going forward. If you guys did you guys like that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's way better than me coming up with ideas. As you can see, we just went through that exercise for an hour, right? So, all right. Any final thoughts? Phil, Eleanor, Greg, Eva. I'll just pick on you then. All right, Eleanor, final thoughts. Now you're on the clock. Now you have to give
Well, thank you again for having us. I guess by next month's show, we'll have a new or different government of some sort, and hopefully we'll have some positive news to report on many different many different topics, not just tariffs.
There should at least be a cabinet level position for RVDA. I mean, just dip your toes in the water, Eleanor, just a little bit, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, special interest group.
Well, we are part of a few groups. There is an outdoor coalition caucus, an outdoor caucus that we sometimes participate in. So we do have some groups, but yeah, it won't be me spearheading an RVDA seat or campaign at the federal level.
Phil.
Well, I think kind of along the lines of what Eleanor was talking about, the outdoor recreation industry in the U.S. is trying to make sure that, that there's national parks and national forests stay open with the staffing issues that are in the media right now. And so far, the Interior Secretary has said that the national parks are going to keep their hours, stay open. And so we're going to be monitoring that and making sure that happens, because people are ready to go outside and enjoy the great outdoors in their RVs or however they camp, and we want to make sure that our public lands are accessible.
Well, the way to do that, Phil, to you in the United States, obviously, is like, I've heard Musk is going back to Tesla. Have you thought about replacing him? A lot of power. You can kind of dictate whatever you want, like keep all the national park people, redirect funding, cut all the other staff from everywhere else, because national parks are the only thing we need in the RV industry, of course. No political aspirations for you, Phil? Like, you must be a special government employee. You don't even need to be elected.
We've got enough now.
That's true. All right. Greg, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for Phil becoming a government employee, but I think, wouldn't he immediately become a probationary, and then thereby, like, his life cycle would be about 18 hours because they would just fire him by the next?
No,
I mean,
because he's going to be, the Musk level. He's going to be a special government employee that has Trump's ear. Like, he'll have an office in the Roosevelt, is it the Roosevelt building that's next door to the White House, something like that? He'll be able to do whatever he wants, but he'll have a 180-day clock like Musk does, right? So he'll have to get everything done really fast. So just start prepping your notes now, Phil. That's what we're saying.
Phil, I'm sorry. I tried to help. He's not going to let up on it.
I'm letting up on it now. Final thoughts, Greg. Sorry.
Those are my final thoughts. Leave Phil alone and find me at Greg at Grow with Vireo.
I'm just trying to help the industry, Greg. Okay. Eva, final thoughts.
I'm just excited about my flying RV coming out in the next 10 years. So I will back whoever can make that happen. So really great being on the show with Greg, Eleanor, Phil, and again, Brian, thank you so much for having me on.
That's interesting, though. You do talk about backing it, right? There's other ways to back things other than finances. So like the media coverage and the things that you do at RV Pro, right? Bringing awareness and highlights to everything from power systems to whatever we come up with next to help power the next generation of whatever consumers want. So thank you guys for being.
Yeah, I'll see if I can pitch the idea of a roundtable idea forum for anybody to bring their crazy ideas to the RV industry. No wrong answers. Let's go.
I mean, there aren't, right? Like, nobody's going to be as crazy as me. But like that kind of ingenuity on power systems, on doors, on kitchens, on chassis, on whatever, right? The brilliant people are out there. Like, a lot of them you're hearing already, but there are a lot of them are out there. You just got to ask them the right questions, and they'll be like, sure, I'd love to talk about that, right? And I think that's the next generation of leaders, like we talked about, that are coming up. And so, yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate your time as always, and for indulging my crazy weirdness about flying cars and all the things. We'll find out if this conversation ages well, I guess, in 10 years.
All right.
Although maybe Eleanor, are you going to be around in 10 years, Eleanor?
I don't know. Remains to be seen.
Okay. All right. We're gonna count on you. You'll still be on the show though, right? Even if you.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I
cool.
wouldn't miss it for the world.
I somehow I don't believe that's fully honest, but thank you for the attempt at being cordial and complimentary. Thank you guys. I appreciate it for another episode. We'll see you in a month or so, and take care. See you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
MC Fireside. MC Fireside.